Maya Rodriguez was about to erase herself from existence, and the strangest part? She had no idea why she was so good at it. She stood in her empty Chicago apartment, holding the last photograph that proved she had ever lived here. 5 years of memories packed into 17 boxes, and somehow it felt like she was packing up someone else's life entirely. Because here's the thing that had been eating at Maya for months: she couldn't remember choosing any of it. Not the job at the insurance company, not this apartment, not even the coffee shop she went to every morning where the barista knew her name. It was like she'd been sleepwalking through her own existence. The photograph in her hands showed her at last year's office Christmas party, smiling next to her coworkers. But when she looked at it now, really looked at it, she felt nothing. Not recognition, not warmth, not even mild familiarity. It was like staring at a stranger who happened to have her face. Her phone buzzed with a text from her boss. "Maya, the team will miss you. Keep in touch." She almost laughed. Keep in touch with what? She was about to disappear to a small town in Oregon she'd never heard of until 3 weeks ago, following an impulse she couldn't explain to save her life. She'd quit her job, broken her lease, and bought a one-way ticket based on nothing more than a feeling. A feeling that something was waiting for her there. But as she stood there, holding that photograph, a memory flickered at the edge of her consciousness. Not her memory, she was sure of that. Someone else's memory, bleeding through like ink through wet paper. A little girl's voice, laughing. "Maya, you can't hide from me forever." Maya dropped the photograph, her heart racing. She'd been having these flashes for weeks now, memories that didn't belong to her, voices she'd never heard, faces that felt familiar but couldn't possibly be. Her doctor said it was stress. Her therapist said it was anxiety about change. But deep down, Maya knew it was something else entirely. She was remembering someone else's life. The bus to Millbrook, Oregon took 18 hours, and Maya spent every one of them staring out the window, watching America blur past in shades of green and gold. She'd never been much of a traveler, at least. She didn't think she had been. It was hard to tell anymore what was really her and what was this strange borrowed existence she'd been living. The memories kept coming, stronger now that she was moving. A woman's voice singing lullabies. The smell of apple pie cooling on a windowsill. The feeling of small hands braiding her hair while someone told stories about dragons and brave princesses. None of it made sense. Maya had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until she aged out of the system at 18. She had no family, no childhood memories of lullabies or apple pie. She'd built her entire identity around being alone, around not needing anyone. So why did these memories feel more real than anything she'd ever experienced? The bus pulled into Millbrook at sunset, and the moment Maya stepped off, something shifted inside her chest. The air smelled like pine trees and rain, and the mountains in the distance looked like old friends welcoming her home. Which was impossible, because she'd never been here before in her life. The town was exactly what you'd picture when someone said small American town, a main street lined with local shops, a diner with checkered curtains, and the kind of silence that comes from everyone knowing everyone else's business. Maya walked down the street with her single suitcase, following an instinct she couldn't name. She stopped in front of a small bookstore called Chapter and Verse, and through the window, she saw something that made her blood freeze. A woman behind the counter, maybe 60 years old, with graying hair pulled back in a ponytail and laugh lines around her eyes. A woman who looked exactly like Maya would look in 30 years. The woman looked up at that exact moment. Their eyes met through the glass, and Maya watched as the color drained from the stranger's face. The woman's mouth formed a single, silent word. Emma. Emma. Not Maya. Emma. And suddenly, Maya remembered everything. Her name wasn't Maya Rodriguez. It was Emma Grace Thompson, and she was 26 years old, not 31 like her fake ID claimed. The woman in the bookstore was her aunt, Grace Thompson, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when Emma was 7. But here's where the story gets strange, because Emma also remembered being Maya Rodriguez. She remembered 5 years of living in Chicago, working at the insurance company, having coffee at that same shop every morning. She remembered applying for jobs, signing leases, making friends who had hugged her goodbye just yesterday. Two complete sets of memories, two entirely different lives, somehow existing in the same person. Grace was crying now, her hands pressed against the window. Emma, Maya, whoever she was, pushed open the door of the bookstore, and the smell of old books and vanilla candles hit her like a physical force. Emma. Grace's voice was broken, desperate. "Oh, sweetheart, where have you been?" "I don't know," Emma whispered, and it was the most honest thing she'd said in years. "I don't know what happened to me." Grace pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home and falling apart at the same time. "You disappeared 5 years ago," she whispered into Emma's hair. "You went for a walk after dinner, and you just vanished. The police searched for months. We thought you were dead." Emma pulled back, studying her aunt's face. "But I wasn't dead. I was in Chicago. I had a job, an apartment, a whole life." "No, sweetheart. You've never been to Chicago. You've lived here your whole life since your parents died. You work at the library. You volunteer at the animal shelter. You're dating that nice boy Tommy who owns the hardware store." The world tilted. Emma grabbed onto the bookstore counter to steady herself. "That's impossible. I remember Chicago. I remember everything." But even as she said it, other memories were flooding back. Reading to children at the library. Rescuing a three-legged dog named Buster. Long walks with a kind-faced man who made her laugh. A life filled with community and love, and the kind of deep contentment she'd never felt as Maya Rodriguez. "Grace," she said slowly, "what if I told you I remember both lives? What if I told you that for the past 5 years, I've been living as someone else entirely, in a different city, with a different job, different memories? What would you say?" Grace was quiet for a long moment, studying Emma's face. Then she said something that changed everything. "I'd say it's time you met the others." The others, as it turned out, were 7 people sitting in Grace's living room above the bookstore, and every single one of them had a story that defied everything Emma thought she knew about reality. There was Marcus, a 34-year-old teacher who remembered being both a high school English teacher in Millbrook and a stockbroker in New York. Janet, a nurse who had simultaneous memories of working at the local clinic and running a food truck in Austin. David, who remembered being both the town's sheriff and a marine biologist in Florida. All of them had disappeared from Millbrook at different times over the past decade. All of them had lived complete, detailed lives somewhere else. And all of them had been drawn back here by the same inexplicable pull that had brought Emma home. "We call ourselves the Collectors," Grace explained, setting down a tray of coffee and homemade cookies that smelled exactly like Emma's childhood memories. "Because we seem to collect lives that aren't ours." Emma sank into the familiar couch. She remembered reading here as a child, remembered Grace reading to her when she first came to live here after the accident. But she also remembered her sterile Chicago apartment, remembered feeling so alone that some nights she'd talk to her reflection in the mirror just to hear another voice. "How long has this been happening?" Emma asked. "The first disappearance was 12 years ago," Marcus said. He was a gentle man with kind eyes, and Emma remembered him teaching her in high school. She also remembered never having met him before in her life. "My friend Paul vanished for 3 years, then came back with memories of being a chef in Portland. We thought it was some kind of breakdown until it kept happening. But why us? Why this town?" That's when Grace pulled out a photograph that made Emma's heart stop. It was a picture of the town from 1952, and there, standing in front of the same bookstore, was a man who looked exactly like Marcus. Next to him, a woman who could have been Janet's twin. In the background, clear as day, was a couple who looked precisely like Emma's parents. "We found this in the Historical Society archives," Grace said quietly. "Every person who's disappeared and come back with dual memories, We can find someone who looks exactly like them in old photographs of this town. Emma stared at the photograph, her mind reeling. You're saying we're, what? Reincarnations. We don't know what we are, said Janet. All we know is that we're connected to this place and to each other in ways that science can't explain. David leaned forward. Emma, do you remember why you left 5 years ago? The question hit her like a physical blow. She remembered the walk after dinner, remembered feeling restless and strange. She'd been having dreams, vivid dreams about a life in a big city, about being someone named Maya who worked in an office and lived alone. The dreams had felt more real than her actual life, and she'd been terrified she was losing her mind. I remember feeling like I didn't belong here anymore, she said slowly. Like someone else was supposed to be living my life. And how did you feel living as Maya in Chicago? Emma thought about it. Empty. Like I was going through the motions of someone else's existence. Like I was waiting for my real life to start. Grace reached over and took her hand. What if I told you that Maya Rodriguez is a real person? What if I told you that right now there's a woman in Chicago who's been living your life for the past 5 years? The room went completely silent. Emma felt like she was falling, even though she was sitting perfectly still. That's impossible. Is it? Marcus asked gently. Emma, what if we don't just collect memories? What if we actually trade lives? What if somewhere out there, there's another version of each of us, living the life we were supposed to live? Emma's phone rang, cutting through the silence like a knife. She looked at the screen, and her blood ran cold. It was her own number. Her Chicago number. With shaking hands, she answered the call. Hello, said a voice that was exactly like hers, but not quite. Is this Emma Thompson? Emma's voice caught in her throat. Who is this? My name is Maya Rodriguez, and I think I've been living your life. The conversation that followed was the strangest of Emma's life, and considering the day she'd had, that was saying something. Maya, the real Maya, had been living Emma's life in Millbrook for 5 years. She remembered growing up here, remembered Grace raising her, remembered working at the library and dating Tommy. But just like Emma had felt in Chicago, she'd always felt like she was wearing someone else's skin. I kept having dreams about a different life, Maya explained over the phone, her voice eerily similar to Emma's, but with subtle differences in inflection. Dreams about living in a big city, working in an office. I thought I was going crazy. And I kept dreaming about this place, Emma whispered. About you. About your life. Emma, Maya said, and hearing her own name in her own voice was surreal beyond description. I need to ask you something. In your Chicago life, did you ever feel empty? Like you were just going through the motions, every single day. And I felt the same way here. Like I was waiting for something or someone. Like I was keeping a place warm for the person who was supposed to be living this life. Grace was watching Emma's face intently. Where is she now? She mouthed. Maya, where are you right now? I'm on a bus, Maya said. I'm coming to find you. I left everything behind, just like you did. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I had to come to Chicago. I knew something was waiting for me there. Emma closed her eyes, trying to process what was happening. We switched lives. But how? Why? Grace gestured for the phone, and Emma reluctantly handed it over. Maya, this is Grace Thompson, Emma's aunt. Can you tell me something? Do you remember your childhood? Your real childhood. There was a long pause. Bits and pieces. Foster care. Moving around a lot. Never really belonging anywhere. And Emma, Grace turned to her. Do you remember your childhood as Maya? Emma nodded. The memories were there, clear as day. The loneliness, the constant moving, the feeling of being unwanted. Maya, Grace said into the phone, I think you and Emma have been sharing more than just lives. I think you've been sharing pain. That's when Emma understood. She and Maya hadn't just switched lives randomly. They'd been called to each other because they were both carrying the same wound, the deep, aching loneliness of not belonging anywhere. Emma had lost her parents and gained a loving aunt, but she'd never fully healed from that early trauma. Maya had never had a real family at all. Somehow, someway, they'd found each other across impossible odds and had been sharing the burden of their pain. Maya, Emma said, taking the phone back, what if we're not supposed to go back to our old lives? What if we're supposed to create something new? What do you mean? Emma looked around the room at the collectors, at Grace's hopeful face, at the photograph of people who looked like them from 70 years ago. What if this isn't about switching back? What if this is about understanding that we're all connected? That we're all part of something bigger than ourselves? And that's when Tommy walked through the door. Tommy Patterson was exactly as Emma remembered him, tall and broad-shouldered, with work-roughened hands and eyes the color of summer storms. He stopped dead in the doorway when he saw her, his face cycling through confusion, hope, and something that looked dangerously close to heartbreak. Emma? His voice was rough, uncertain. Is it really you? Emma's heart clenched. She remembered him, remembered the way he made her laugh, remembered quiet Sunday mornings reading the paper together, remembered falling asleep in his arms feeling safer than she ever had in her life. But she also remembered being Maya, remembered the hollow ache of being alone, remembered wondering if she'd ever find someone who could love the broken parts of her. It's me, she said, then immediately corrected herself. It's both of us. Tommy's brow furrowed, and Grace quickly explained what they'd discovered. As she talked, Emma watched the play of emotions across Tommy's face, disbelief, wonder, and underneath it all, a hurt so deep it made her chest tight. So for 5 years, Tommy said slowly, I've been in love with someone who wasn't really you? The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Emma felt Maya's presence somehow, felt the weight of the life they'd shared through this impossible connection. Tommy, Emma said carefully, do you remember anything feeling different? Anything feeling off? He was quiet for a long moment, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. There were times, he admitted, when you'd look at me like you were seeing me for the first time. Times when you'd seem surprised by things you should have remembered. I thought it was just. I don't know, I thought maybe you were having second thoughts about us. Emma's heart broke. It wasn't that. It was never that. Then what was it, Emma? Because I've been in love with you for 7 years, and now I find out that for 5 of those years, you weren't even you. The pain in his voice was unbearable. Emma looked at Grace, at the collectors, searching for an answer that could make sense of any of this. That's when her phone rang again. Maya, Emma. Maya's voice was urgent. I'm in Chicago, and I need you to listen to me. I went to your apartment, and there are things here. Things that belong to both of us. What do you mean? There's a journal. Your handwriting, but my memories. And Emma, there's something else. I found letters. Letters addressed to both of us, in handwriting I don't recognize. Emma's blood went cold. Read me one. My dearest Emma and Maya, Maya began, and her voice was shaking. If you're reading this, then the exchange has begun to unravel. You must understand that what happened to you is not random, was not cruel. It was love. The room went completely silent. Even Tommy stepped closer, drawn in despite his confusion and hurt. Keep reading, Emma whispered. You were both in so much pain, Emma from loss, Maya from never having had love at all. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, decided you should share the burden. Emma needed to understand what it felt like to be truly alone so she could appreciate what she had. Maya needed to understand what it felt like to be loved so she could believe she deserved it. Emma sank onto the couch, her legs suddenly unable to support her. Who wrote this? It's signed, Maya said, her voice barely audible. With all our love, Mom and Dad. Emma's world tilted. That's impossible. My parents died when I was 7. Grace moved to sit beside her, her face pale. Emma, sweetheart, there's something I never told you about the night your parents died. Emma looked up at her aunt, afraid of what she was about to hear. They weren't just in a car accident. They were coming back from a psychic, a woman who claimed she could communicate with the dead. Your mother had been having dreams about past lives, about souls who were connected across time and space. The psychic told them that their daughter, you, were part of something called a soul collective. The term hit Emma like a physical blow. She remembered something now, something from childhood. Her mother, crying over coffee with Grace, talking about dreams where Emma lived different lives, loved different people, carried different pain. Grace, Emma said slowly, what if the letters are real? What if somehow my parents found a way to arrange this? That's impossible, honey. Is it? Is it any more impossible than me living someone else's life for 5 years? Is it any more impossible than all of us? She gestured to the collectors, having dual memories. Tommy spoke up, his voice rough. Emma, what are you saying? She looked at him, this man who had loved 2 versions of her without even knowing it. I think my parents found a way to help me heal. To help Maya heal. By letting us share each other's lives, each other's pain, each other's love. Maya, Emma said into the phone, are you still there? I'm here. Emma, there's one more letter. It's addressed to Tommy. Tommy went rigid. To me. Should I read it? Emma looked at Tommy, saw the fear and hope warring in his face. Yes. Maya's voice was soft as she read, Dear Tommy, by now you know the truth about Emma and Maya. We need you to understand that the woman you fell in love with was always Emma. Her soul, her heart, her capacity for love, that was always her. Maya was just helping her remember how to be whole. The question now is, do you love her enough to love all of her? Even the parts that lived a different life? Tommy was staring at Emma, and she could see him processing everything. The confusion, the hurt, but underneath it all, something else. Recognition. Emma, he said quietly, the day you came back to yourself, when Maya started remembering your life, you looked at me differently. How? Like you were seeing me with new eyes. Like you were appreciating me in a way you never had before. He stepped closer. You told me you loved me that night, and it was the first time it sounded like you really meant it. Emma's breath caught. It was true. That night, feeling Maya's loneliness and emptiness fade as Emma's memories of love and family flooded back, she had loved Tommy with a depth and gratitude she'd never experienced before. Maya helped me understand what I had, Emma whispered. And I helped her understand what she deserved. Tommy knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. Then, I guess I owe Maya a thank you. Tommy. Emma, I don't care how many lives you've lived or how many versions of yourself exist. I fell in love with your soul, and that's never changed. And that's when Maya said something through the phone that changed everything. Emma, I can feel you right now. I can feel your happiness, your relief. And I think it's time for us to meet.
If you are enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means a lot to us. We are just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Maya arrived in Millbrook 3 days later, and the moment she stepped off the bus, Emma felt it, a strange completion, like a missing piece of herself had finally come home. Maya looked exactly like Emma, but softer somehow, her edges worn smooth by years of solitude and self-reliance. They met at the town square, with Grace, Tommy, and the collectors watching from a respectful distance. For a long moment, Emma and Maya just stared at each other, 2 halves of an impossible whole. This is so weird, Maya said, and Emma laughed because it was exactly what she'd been thinking. You look like me, but different, Emma observed. You look like me, but happier, Maya replied. They sat on the bench under the old oak tree, the same bench where Emma used to read as a child, the same bench where Maya had sat countless times over the past 5 years, wondering why she felt so restless. Maya, Emma said carefully, what was it like? Living my life? Maya was quiet for a moment. It was like being in a warm house when you'd been outside in the cold for your whole life. Your aunt loves you so much, Emma. And Tommy. She glanced over at him. He's a good man. He loved me even when I was just a shadow of you. And what was it like for you in Chicago? Living as me. Emma thought about it. Empty, but necessary. I needed to understand what it felt like to have nothing so I could appreciate what I have. Maya, do you regret it? The switch. No, Maya said immediately. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to belong somewhere. To be part of a family. Even if it wasn't really mine, even if I was just borrowing it. That's when Emma had an idea that was either brilliant or completely crazy. Maya, what if you didn't have to give it back? Maya frowned. What do you mean? Emma looked over at Grace, who had been listening with tears in her eyes. Grace, you raised me because you loved me, right? Because I needed a family. Of course, sweetheart. And Maya needs a family too. She's been alone her whole life. Grace's face lit up with understanding. Emma, are you saying what I think you're saying? Emma stood up, pulling Maya with her. Maya Rodriguez, would you like to be my sister? Maya's eyes filled with tears. Emma, that's not how family works. Isn't it? Emma gestured to the collectors, who had become like family to each other through their shared experience. We've shared lives, shared memories, shared love. If that doesn't make us family, I don't know what does. Grace approached them, her face radiant. Maya, I don't know if you believe in fate or cosmic forces or divine intervention, but I know what I felt the moment I saw you through that bookstore window. I felt like my other daughter had come home. Maya broke down then, years of loneliness and longing pouring out of her. Emma wrapped her arms around her, around herself, and held on tight. But what about Chicago? Maya asked through her tears. What about the life you built there? That life was yours, Maya. It was your strength, your independence, your ability to survive on your own. Take it back. Make it yours for real this time. And you'll stay here? I'll stay here with Tommy and Grace and the family I never fully appreciated until I lost it. Tommy approached them cautiously. Emma, are you sure? I mean, I love you, but this is all. Completely insane? Emma finished. Yes, it is. But Tommy, for the first time in my life, I'm choosing my life instead of just living it. And I choose you. I choose this town. I choose this family. She turned to Maya. And you can choose Chicago. Choose independence. Choose the career you built. But Maya, yeah, choose to stay connected to us too. Choose to be part of this impossible, beautiful family we've accidentally created. Maya wiped her eyes, looking around at all the faces watching her with hope and love. You really want me to be your sister? I really want you to be my sister. Even though we're the same person? Emma grinned. Especially because we're the same person. Who else would understand me like you do? That's when the strangest thing happened. As Maya nodded, as she accepted this impossible offer of family and belonging, Emma felt something shift inside her chest. Not a loss, but a completion. Like she'd been carrying Maya's loneliness all her life, and now she could finally set it down. And Maya felt it too, Emma's deep capacity for love, for connection, for belonging, settling into her chest like a warm light she could carry back to Chicago. They were still the same person, but they were also completely different. Emma, whole and grounded and ready to build a life with the people she loved. Maya, strong and independent, but no longer alone, carrying the knowledge that she had a family who would always welcome her home. So what happens now? Maya asked. Emma looked around at the collectors, at Grace, at Tommy, at this small town that had somehow become the center of an impossible miracle. Now we figure out how to live with the mystery, she said. We figure out how to be grateful for the inexplicable. And we remember that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are the ones that don't make sense. But there was still one more surprise waiting for them. The final letter arrived a week later, delivered by a mail carrier who swore he'd never seen it before, even though it appeared to be decades old. It was addressed to the collectors of Millbrook in handwriting that made Grace gasp. That's my mother's handwriting, she whispered. But she died when I was 20. They gathered in Grace's living room, Emma, Maya, Tommy, and all the collectors. Grace opened the letter with shaking hands and began to read. To our beloved descendants and kindred spirits, If you are reading this, then the work we began 70 years ago has finally come to fruition. Emma looked at the old photograph again, at the faces that looked so much like theirs. Grace continued, "We were the first collectors, the first souls to be called to Millbrook by forces we didn't understand. We came from different places, different lives, but we were all carrying the same burden, the deep loneliness that comes from feeling like you don't belong anywhere." Marcus leaned forward. "They were like us. Millbrook isn't just a town," Grace read. "It's a sanctuary. A place where lost souls can find each other, where the universe conspires to heal the wounds that keep us separated from love. Every generation, a new group of collectors arrives, drawn by the same inexplicable force that brought us here." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "We're not the first. The switching of lives, the dual memories, the impossible connections, these are not accidents. They are love made manifest. The universe's way of showing us that we are never truly alone, that somewhere out there, someone else is carrying our same pain, our same hopes, our same capacity for healing." Maya grabbed Emma's hand. "We're part of something bigger. But here is the most important thing we learned." Grace's voice was shaking now. "The connections we make here, the love we build, the family we choose, it all continues. Every soul who finds healing in Millbrook becomes part of an eternal network of love that spans across time and space. You are never alone because you are part of us and we are part of you." David wiped his eyes. "That's why we can find ourselves in old photographs. The letter you found from Emma's parents was real. Love doesn't end with death, it transforms. It finds new ways to reach the people who need it most." Emma's parents, Maya's foster parents who tried their best, all the family members who have passed on, they are all part of the force that brought you together. Emma thought about her parents, about how their love had somehow orchestrated the most impossible rescue mission in history, how they had found a way to heal her broken heart by connecting her to someone who needed healing just as much as she did. And so our message to you is this: trust in the mystery. Trust in the impossible. Trust that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it will always find a way to bring lost souls home to each other. Grace folded the letter, and they all sat in stunned silence. Finally, Tommy spoke up. "So, what does this mean for us? For all of us?" Emma looked around the room at these people who had become her chosen family. "It means we get to be the ones who welcome the next collectors. It means we get to be the ones who help other lost souls understand that they're not alone." Maya nodded. "It means I'm going back to Chicago, but I'm taking all of you with me in my heart. And whenever the next person needs to switch lives, needs to learn about belonging or independence or love, we'll be here to help them understand." "It means," said Grace, smiling through her tears, "that love wins. Always, always, love wins." Emma stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the town that had saved her life in the most impossible way. Tommy came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if none of this had occurred?" he asked. Emma leaned back against his chest, feeling Maya's strength and independence flowing through her, feeling the love of her parents and Grace and all the collectors who had come before surrounding her like a warm blanket. "No," she said softly, "because this is exactly what was supposed to happen. Every broken heart, every moment of loneliness, every impossible coincidence, it all led us here. It all led us to each other." Maya appeared beside them, her bags packed for the journey back to Chicago. But she wasn't the same Maya who had arrived broken and searching. She was Maya who knew she was loved, Maya who had a family, Maya who understood that she deserved all the good things life had to offer. "Thank you," Maya said to Emma, "for sharing your life with me, for showing me what love looks like." "Thank you," Emma replied, "for showing me how strong I really am. For teaching me to never take love for granted." They hugged, sisters now, family by choice and cosmic design. As Maya's bus pulled away, Emma felt something she'd never felt before: complete wholeness. Not because she'd gotten her old life back, but because she'd learned that love multiplies when you share it, that family isn't just about blood, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is trust in forces beyond your understanding. Tommy squeezed her hand. Ready to start our life together? Our real life. Emma smiled, thinking about all the future collectors who would find their way to Millbrook, all the lost souls who would discover that they were never really lost at all, just temporarily separated from the love that was always waiting for them. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. And as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Emma understood the final truth, that every ending is really a beginning, every goodbye is really a hello, and love, real, transformative, miraculous love, is the only force in the universe powerful enough to turn strangers into family and impossibility into home. The last thing she heard before going inside was the sound of laughter from the next bus pulling into town, carrying someone new, someone lost, someone ready to discover that they belonged to something bigger and more beautiful than they had ever dared to imagine. After all, love always finds a way.